guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing with you yet another pattern. This will be for my outfit number 2 of the Cinder collection, which is inspired in Cinderella's story. Not the fairy tale itself, but more of who she was before the story actually began. I am super excited to share this with you. This pattern is a little bit more complex, a little bit more challenging than the first one. If you haven't watched the first one, I really recommend you to go and do that. I'll link it down below and up here somewhere in the screen. Another thing that I do want to tell you and I need to tell you is that this pattern is based off a base bodice pattern and a base skirt pattern that I have shared on my YouTube channel and on my website. So if you haven't watched those videos, if you haven't seen that blog post, I really recommend you to do so first, because we're using that as a base to create this pattern, meaning that all the measurements that we would normally need to create this pattern are already on that base pattern. So to the left of the screen we have the pattern base that we're going to utilize to create the new pattern, and as you can see on the right side, that's the final result that we should be able to achieve. So a little bit more challenging, but I'm sure you'll be able to nail it. I will guide you step by step, so I hope you're ready. The first step is to copy the bodice base pattern. And to do so, we will create a 4 cm point just below the armhole, and from that point we will start copying the base pattern until we find the first dart point. From there we're going to rotate our bodice pattern, making sure we're closing the dart, because we're trying to eliminate these 2 darts that we have both on the waist and on the shoulder, and create a new one on the bust line. As you can see on the video, I just closed the dart and now I'm continuing to copying the rest of the pattern until I find the next dart. The image on the right side of the screen can show you more or less what I mean by the bust darts. So we're eliminating the 2 darts that we have on the bodice pattern and create a new one on the bust line. So we got to the second dart, and once again we're going to rotate and close that dart and continue to copy the rest of the pattern until we find the 4 cm below the armhole point that we drew before. And there you have it. Now we just need to finish the dart by connecting the 3 points and drawing also the middle of the dart as you normally would in another dart. After copying the pattern, we can then cut it and then create the last and final bodice pattern for this dress, which will be without a center front cut. So it will be at just 1 panel for the whole front instead of 2 panels, which is kind of the norm. And to do so, you only need to copy the pattern twice, so once on the left side and once on the right side, and there you have it. You don't actually need to add any extra measurements to it. Next, we're changing from a normal neckline to a boat neckline, and to do so we only need to measure 5 cm on the shoulder and then connect to the old line on the neck, and this will create like a boat shaped neckline, and that's what we want for this pattern. Next, we're going to do the bodice back pattern, and to do so we're going to copy the base pattern, keeping the waist dart, but then the shoulder dart we're going to close it and then copying it until the armhole point, and then connect until the waistline. We also need to make sure that we're drawing the 5 cm shoulder line to create the perfect neckline. As soon as the pattern is done, we can then go ahead and cut it, and then we will, same as we did for the front, we'll copy a new pattern without the center back. Next, we're going to do the sleeve, and we're going to start with the sleeve head. It's quite simple and straightforward. All you need to do is copy the sleeve pattern, the base pattern, and cut it short. So in this case, I am doing a 4 cm short sleeve, which means that from the armhole down towards the wrist line, I'm going to measure 4 cm, and that's basically the head of the sleeve. And a side note, don't forget to mark the notches. That's quite important for better fitting at the end. Next, we're going to jump into the frills for the sleeve. In this case, we have 2 layers of frills, and I decided for this pattern to do the same method as you would for the circle full skirt, which means folding your fabric, in this case your paper for the pattern, 2 times, so giving you 4 sheets of paper sort of thing. So you fold it half and then again half. And then from the corner we're going to have to measure the radius, and the radius is a little bit tricky to calculate, but I have it here on the side, the calculation for you to do it. So for an example, in my case, the head of my sleeve hem is 27.5 centimeters, which means that I need to do the calculation with that measurement. So 27.5 equals 2 times p times the radius, and then you go down that calculation and then you'll have your radius. I tend to round it up, so it will be a 4.4 centimeters. We will then measure this 4.4 from the corner of this square, creating kind of a quarter of a circle. And then from that new line that we just draw, we're then going to measure the length that we want for this frill. So in my case, I wanted an 8 centimeter length, so I went and measured 8 centimeters from that new line. So that means that we now have 2 quarter of a circles. We then can cut it those 2 lines, and then when you open it, you'll see that you have a full circle with kind of a hole inside. Next, we're going to do the same method for the bottom layer with a 4.4 radius, because we're attaching it to the hem of the top sleeve, and but this time with a 14 centimeters length, so it will be longer than the top layer. And there you have it, we are done with the top a bit of this dress. We now need to jump into the skirt, which is a little bit more tricky, but I'm sure we'll manage. So onto the skirt back pattern. The back pattern is actually quite simple and straightforward. We are going to copy the base pattern as we did for the bodice, making sure that we keep the darts. They should align with the bodice darts, so to make sure the measurements are all correct. But the main difference will be actually on the bottom of the skirt. On the side seam, we'll measure 15 centimeters and then push those 15 centimeters outwards, creating this elongation of the skirt. As well, we're going to measure 5 centimeters from the center back, and with a curve ruler, you can go ahead and make these lines seamless. This will give a more flared look to the skirt, especially at the back. So, onto the skirt front panel. We're going to start with the left side. Because we have a crossover skirt, we need to draw 2 different panels, the left and the right. Same as we did with the bodice, we're going to copy the base pattern, but this time we're going to avoid that dart. By closing that dart, we have a slightly different side seam, but that is okay as long as the center front keeps exactly the same. Next, we are going to draw the 15 centimeters that we did on the back panel. This would allow us to create the extra flare movements in the skirt. But the most important part of this pattern is actually going to be at the center front. At the center front, we need to add 8 centimeters to allow us to do the crossover when we are constructing our garment. This, as it is the left side, will be the under layer, and then the right side will be the over layer. I also decided to round this edge so it looks a little bit more feminine and delicate. And here comes the interesting part of this pattern. I say interesting, some people might say challenging, but it's just perspectives. Anyway, we need to copy the same thing, the base pattern. As I mentioned, we do not want a dart, so we need to make sure we eliminate that. At this stage, we do not need to add the 8 centimeters and the 15 centimeters. I actually did here, but you don't need to, because we're going to have to cut up this pattern to allow us to create the extra folds into the garment. So draw those diagonal lines. I did I didn't actually give any special measurements to them. I just did it as I kind of wanted the folds to fall into place around the hip line and going upwards. As soon as you have that, you can then cut them open but not loose from the waistline onto the side seam. So as I mentioned, cut them open but not loose, so they still need to stick together. This will allow us to then open this cut and create the darts that would allow us to form the folds in the garment. So as soon as you done that, I highly recommend you to actually pin it or glue it to your paper. I was just being lazy here and I was copying it without doing those. but the ideal is for you to make sure they don't move place. Once again, you can open them as far as you want, is your decision, but I kind of want them more or less 12 centimeters apart. So that's what I went for. And with this pattern, then we are going to create the darts. And to do so, we just need to connect those 4 points, as well as find the middle of the dart and create the kind of pointy triangle that will make sure that when you fold those darts, you have them on the waistline, all of them. So it will be easier for sewing later on. Next, we are going to do the frills for the skirt. So for this, you need to know exactly the measurement of the whole hemline on the skirt, including back and front. I decided to do 3 frills, so for each part of the pattern for the skirt, and 6 centimeters of the frill. And to this measurement, you need to add the seam allowance. So in total, I went to 9 centimeters. You drew a straight line, and with that straight line, you measure the 9 centimeters over and over and over. And then from the middle point, you want to start measuring kind of a circle, and then from the circle, you're going to go around and forming a sort of spiral. In this measurement, so from the point that you start the spiral, you're going to measure the length of the frill desired. So in the same pattern, you can put the 3 measurements for the 3 frills, as how I did it mine. And then there you have it. You have a nice flare pattern to construct your frills. As soon as you've done the pattern, you can go ahead and cut it, and the frills are done. The last part of the pattern I actually didn't record, which is just a waistband, which is a simple rectangle with the desired length for the waistband that you want. I ended up going for a 2-meter waistband length, as I have a 69 waist, and I really wanted kind of a long knot at the front. I thought that 2 meters was just the perfect length. And this is what the final pattern should look like. At the end, you should have 12 pieces. I know in the screen you can only see 10, but the reason why is because the spiral frills, the pattern that we created, I only did 1 paper pattern for 3 frills with 3 different measurements, but at the end, when I cut the fabric, I will have 12 pieces instead of 10. And we are done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to click the like button if you enjoyed it, and also to subscribe to the channel for more content on how to create a fashion collection, how to be a designer, and follow my journey into becoming a sustainable fashion designer. I hope you enjoyed it once again, and thank you so much. I'll see you next time.